Okay, can everybody hear me through my Madonna microphone at the back? Excellent. Okay, so thank you all for coming along today, and hopefully I can reward you with some interesting insights from SDL. So just a very brief outline to show you what we'll cover in the next 30 minutes, and then also look out for a few mother-in-law jokes. I'm getting married in 4 weeks' time, so I need to road test some material for that speech. So, when it comes to business, we believe that there is a fundamental problem in business at the moment in that you get the behaviour that you measure. I've got some examples here of what that might actually mean, and you might be able to identify with it. If you're measuring how many calls your customer service team answers before it hits the fourth ring, you'll be measuring more calls because that's the behaviour that you're driving. You're encouraging the behaviour of that customer service person picking up the phone. If you're measuring mentions on a Twitter account, or you're counting how many thumbs up you get on Facebook, how many likes you're collecting, you'll just get a big dumb number of tweets, mentions, retweets and likes. There is nothing there to tell you of the quality or the nature of those mentions or those likes. There is nothing there to indicate perhaps the sentiment or where it's come from or who's saying it. And then again, if you've got a landing page that you're looking to generate a lot of interest around, you're looking to capture the hearts and minds of consumers, and maybe you run a television ad to drive people to go and click on that landing page. Again, all you're doing is just putting eyeballs from the TV onto a landing page. You don't really know much more other than the fact that there are eyeballs going to this landing page, unless you're doing some serious data capture. So this is where we believe at SDL, I work for the social intelligence division, that social data is actually a key way to find out all this missing information and will help you measure things in a more meaningful way, measure the things that actually matter to your business. So with social data, I'm not saying that social data is king. It's, I won't come out with any kind of tired cliches around, social data being the new oil. Essentially, data is oil. Email information, sign-ups on forums, viewing figures, that's all sticky, it's all oil. So I'm not here to say that social is the be-all and end-all. Social is brilliant with other data sets. So where do most of you see social media conversations taking place? Any examples of where you see a lot of activity in social media? No? Okay then. Let's try it this way. Which, as a business, if you're using social media, which platform works best for you as a business? How many of you are getting more use and benefit out of Twitter? And how many of you are getting more use out of Facebook? Pinterest? Google+? And how many of you are finding that you're doing better with blogging? Okay. So we've got quite a mix here of people who've got different priorities where they have social data. But we can already see that all these different platforms generate data. For me personally, I feel that the reason that Google Plus came along as a social network wasn't necessarily to create a better platform for sharing pictures of cats, but it's more the fact that Google needed that social data and that demographic data that Facebook already had in abundance, but they couldn't afford to buy a Facebook. So they had to create their own platform, which they could then supplement that demographic data. When we all signed up for Google Plus in the first few weeks and we all filled in all the different forms and gave them, that was the biggest sponge that they could have built to collect all that data that they need to then supplement with their search data. So that's a very powerful thing that they've done there. So don't necessarily think of Google Plus as a social network for the sake of a social network. Think of it as the data that it actually generated for Google. So, broadly speaking, all the ways in which consumers think about your organisation and the way in which they interact with your organisation, they all add up to three particular pillars. So the value proposition, how do people interact, how do they behave around you as a brand and your products, how are your product launches going? The engagement area, so how do consumers think? What are their experiences via your content? What's the interaction that they're getting from that? And then finally, the brand. So how do they feel? Do they have an affinity to your brand? What kind of influence do they have? Who influences them to make a connection with your brand? Where are these connections coming from? These are all three things that are key areas that a business needs to know about to understand how they go to market better. And this forms the basis of our customer commitment framework. So we've got these 3 shared goals, and this creates what we believe is the ideal customer. And again, going along the lines of those 3 pillars, the ideal customer or consumer is one who shops, shares and advocates. They perform all these activities for you and your brand in order to be the best ideal connection that you could have. So, when it comes to shopping, we need to be measuring what it is that is driving that behaviour of spending money with you. When it comes to sharing, we need to measure the very thing that you're using to get the advocacy out there, and what is your content worth. So our measurement system helps people to understand where customers are on the customer journey. They could be on any number of these different paths at any one moment, or they could be going through a multiple experience here, but you need to understand and measure, crucially, what matters most to your business. So I've got a few stories now to share with you of where we've done this for a few brands and how that kind of informs where we are. So the CNN piece here, hopefully you're all familiar with CNN as a broadcast network. They asked us to deliver some insight and some kind of digital strategy around the value of their website, because they wanted to know how much advertising revenue that they could go and demand and generate, which are the pages that were getting shared, where is the content that they're generating. As a publisher, they're generating tons of content, but they didn't have a measure of what was happening to it or where it was going or what the value was of shareability. So as we can see here, from the extensive audit of their content that we did, supplemented with social media monitoring, again, SDL SM2 is our social media monitoring tool that we provide. We were then able to identify that 43% of the news content shared from the website is done through social. That might not surprise you too much. Social is the big thing at the moment. But also the email is another platform. But we can break down the social into where exactly it is that it's happening. So, some of the familiar platforms that we've heard about already, Facebook and Twitter, obviously the key ones, and YouTube, because they're putting up video content being shared through a video social network, as you might expect. But it's crucial that we kind of break this down to understand it further. Now, as SDL, we're a company that's very big on language translation, so we also like to delve deeper into any kind of data set to look at the linguistic differences. And we can see from the content that is shared from the CNN website, different areas of the world actually share for different reasons. There are different motivations for sharing. So rather than just looking at content and going, yes, it gets shared, let's look at if there might be somewhere where we are informed of through the social data of how it gets shared. So as we can see from here, very altruistic in the motivations for sharing, lots of looking to amuse a social network, whereas when we get over to the Asia-Pac kind of territory, it's a status thing. It's amplifying of self through social networks. So already now we know different things about different territories, and we need to think globally about social media. And then the next thing that we get to from our research is that there is an actual disparity between the content that people tend to share and the information that people tend to read. So, I mean, it's fairly curious that the articles from the website that are shared the most are largely relating to entertainment, music, film and celebrity, or to you and I, gossip. People like to gossip, even in social media and through social networks. But when you actually ask these people what is it that they like to read, the travel and weather is the factual, the actual something that is telling them some important information is what they're actually seeking. So we can see already that there's a disconnect there between what people like to share, but what people actually like to go and read. So you'll get some covert people there's probably plenty of people in this room that like to read all the gossip stuff, but they wouldn't necessarily share it, because then they might reveal to their friends that they actually enjoy the gossip and the titillation. So again, you need to think about content that way as a driver. And this is where we can start to delve even further. Do we have any semioticians in the room? No semioticians? Good. This is a semiotician's wheel, this thing of beauty. And basically what we've done, semiotics is kind of the study of the meaning of textual analysis and things like that. So by taking all of the articles in the data set that we had from CNN, we could code every single story along the lines of what was the purpose of the article, what was the theme of the article, and what was the underlying message. And what we see here is that the top 5 articles that were shared break down this way. So the top article, the purpose of it was to deep dive, it was to give you more information, it was to tell you more about something. The theme was a spectacle of visual nature, but the underlying message itself was something that was highlighting something about a different culture. So we now know that that particular article was the one that got shared the most. It might be because of the very fact that we know the purpose, the theme, and the underlying message. As you can see, predominantly in the top 5 articles, it is the fact that the story gives you that bit more information. So CNN now know that giving as much information and delving further below the surface of a story is something that people actually like. And then this is where we get to the key part, really, the power of one. So from this research and the strategy that they then developed around an editorial code based on the semiotics that we've just shown you, they then found that for every 1 additional unique user, that then brought to their website 5 new unique users who are even more engaged in that they are spending longer on the website, they're reading deeper into the website, more click-throughs, staying on the website longer, lower bounce rate. And when we did a interview with some test candidates, they actually showed a higher level of recall and correct recall of brands that they saw advertising on the website. So if you actually start to think about the nature of the content and really get into it, you can deliver exactly what it is that you want and increase all these kind of behaviours that are worth measuring as a publisher that's looking to make money. Okay, so the next story is about a large motor oil provider who wanted to engage with the F1 audience. As a motor oil provider, they were very much key to the motorsports industry, and they were investing heavily in further ad spend as part of the return of the US Grand Prix. Last season, the US Grand Prix in Austin, Texas came back to the race calendar, and they wanted to make an impact there. But they needed to understand what kind of conversation should they be having, what kind of content should they be sharing, and perhaps more pertinently, who should they be having it with. They were savvy enough to understand that a blanket message of just going on all social media channels and explaining, blasting out a message and broadcasting wasn't going to cut through. It wouldn't have the resonance that it needed. So they brought us on board to identify this. And again, using the social data, we managed to do this. So as I highlighted earlier to you, that using SDL SM2, we can go back many years with social data, and that's exactly what's helped us here to inform our opinion for delivering the strategy. So we knew the date of the US Grand Prix was coming up. We wanted to learn from the experiences and the social data generated by other Grand Prix events. This is the social data measured for 6 months of F1 Grand Prix activity. Now you see every time it spikes, that's every time there's a race weekend. So it tends to run on a fortnightly basis, that you'll get a new race, and that's where you get the spike in conversation. So already we know there's a bell curve. Every time we get into a race situation, testing, qualifying, the race day, and then it drops straight off again. So that's interesting in and of itself. We took the actual data set from the Malaysian Grand Prix, as that's the one that generated the most in the 6 months and gave us a better data set to work with. So picking up from, as we saw in the CNN case, repeating the same kind of method, but we'll develop it further shortly, we can get a granular understanding again. Coming down to the 3 pillars, you can take every single piece of content, every tweet, every Facebook update, every comment on a blog, and you can categorize it accordingly. So what is the content type? Is it speculation? Is it gossip? Is it a poll? Is it a stat? Is it a joke? What's the theme? Is it about the driver? Is it about the F1 business? Is it about celebrity? Is it about the weather? And the underlying messages, F1 fun, the beauty of the sport, performance, F1 pride. So each piece can be categorized, and then you build up a picture of understanding what the nature of F1 conversations actually are. And so from that we can see that predominantly the content type is news-based. Predominantly the theme is around a driver. So there's lots of conversations in social around drivers during race activity, as you might expect. and the underlying message is a you should know this. It's sharing of facts, it's sharing of knowledge and information amongst like-minded fans. So you would look at this and perhaps say that your ideal tweet to send out as a brand or your ideal update to put through Facebook would be something that is news-related, relating to a driver that people need to know and they might not previously know. So already now we're getting a kind of crystallized idea of what strategy the brand should take to have a maximum impact in positioning with F1. But we do need to find out more of who they should actually engage. And that's where we start looking at personas. By looking at personas, we are working with that same audience, that same data set, where we've already analysed the nature of the conversation and the quality and the type of the conversation. And we're now, with our researchers, we're looking at whether we can put people into buckets, if you will. And so we've got experience enthusiasts make up 57% of the audience. Experience enthusiasts are the type of people that like to get all their mates round of a Sunday to come and watch a race, have a few beers. They really love the spectacle, they like the competitive nature, they love the sport. But they don't really care for what oil is used, what tyres are used, that kind of thing. They're just there for the race day experience. Then we get the motorsport fans, and those are the types of people that swear allegiance to a team. They're very loyal to drivers and teams, they despise other teams, and they truly care about the competitive nature. They'll care about the points and the standings and the competitive edge of the race day experience. And then finally we get through to the performance gurus who need to know the exact detail about oil, they need to know about tyres, they want to know the angle of the wing on the race car, they really care about performance. And so it's those people that we identified as the ones that the brand would need to identify with and send out their careful messaging. And it's this 11% that are going to deliver the best possible return for the brand, because they have products that are tied directly to them, and also because we can identify what the brand position would be. The brand is synonymous with great performance. These people are all about performance. Therefore, we can see there's a nice fit. We can also see the relevant channels. So we know that these people, again, we can identify where the conversations are happening. It's not so much happening on Twitter or Facebook, it's more the message boards and the forums. So they need to get involved there. That's where they need to have their conversation and get involved to have their share of the voice around F1. And again, we've got some further information that we've managed to find out, so that we know that 93% of them are male. And this all informs how you deliver your messaging. So, as we've seen on a race weekend, I said you get a typical bell curve of not much conversation leading up to it, a little bit of conversation comes about through qualifying, and then the race day itself is where you get the peak of all the mentions. But curiously, it's with these 11% performance gurus during the race, don't try and talk to them. They're that involved, that focused on the race, it's a waste of effort to try and have a conversation through social with them during the race itself. They won't be these aren't the kind of people that will be dual screening a race on an iPad or a laptop and watching the race itself. So that means you've got to work in the pre-race and after the event. And because of our understanding of the different platforms, we can identify which platform and what kind of strategy we might take here. Okay, so finally now, one last quick story. In the first story, we saw how it was important to understand the nature of content and how content is shared. The second one, we developed that further. We understood the nature of the content, who it was shared with, and then we applied it to who, the persona side. Who should you apply that messaging to? So now we will take that further and look at how that becomes perhaps an email campaign for a brand. So again, coming into personas, because if you can put people into buckets, rather than marketing to just the individual itself, you're now marketing to a like-minded set of individuals. So you are being targeted with your marketing messaging, but you're doing it to a collection of like-minded people. Now, when it comes to discussing money online, looking at the social data again, we can see that there are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different mind states that we could clearly identify. And this gives us clues around the nature of conversations where financial products are concerned. And if you look here, you can see a little bit more. Maybe you can even put yourself in one of these buckets, that when it comes to financial products, this is your mindset, this is what you think, this is how you feel about money. So when it comes to a bank looking to sell a product to you, if they can understand this about you, you're more likely to get an uplift and take up their offer. And in this instance, we're looking at how we can apply a special rate to a certain number one of these and offer them a good deal as a bank. So we're going to take a look at the Liberated. It's the Liberated where we see that there is a great opportunity. And again, as I've said to you earlier, social data is brilliant when you complement it with another existing data set. So the bank already knew certain elements of income for these people. They already knew that the Liberated tended to be people who are in mid to late 40s, people that have already paid off their mortgage and have got a little bit of money in savings that they can use, but they value money and they understand that there is a need for security. So now we have a really good, strong picture of what the Liberated person looks like. We can start to think about how our messaging to them might appear in a campaign. And that's where it comes to sending out an email campaign, focus on making them feel secure with the language. We know that security is something that they value. Rather than just sending a blanket message saying, hey, come buy our credit card with this ridiculously good offer that anyone can have, we're sending a targeted message. So we're speaking their language. With the imagery, we know that they are in the 40s plus age range, so the imagery speaks to that. And again, this is clearly two people relaxed, carefree, having a good time, perhaps on holiday. And again, that all built into the language, and that's the social data that's informed that. And again, because we know from it that they value security, we're giving them the good offer that the bank wants to put in, but we're also providing a tool calculator and a link to that. So from the social intelligence that we've gained here, we can see that we need to offer them more than just messaging. Some people need tools to make the decisions, to move them along that customer journey towards purchase. And so it's from doing that we can measure these things more succinctly. So I hope that you've seen the value of social data today, and that social media monitoring has truly grown up. It's no longer just responding to people on Twitter, having a moan about their broadband being down or something like that. And that at SDL Social, that we can help you measure the behaviour that you're after.